My name is Alan Burt, and welcome to The Commerce Lab, the show for growth-minded e-commerce entrepreneurs who want to scale their business. After having worked with dozens of successful brands through my firm Blue Stout, I've been fortunate enough to see what it takes to successfully scale a physical products business into the 8 figures and beyond. On this show, we'll dive deep into the e-commerce economy to analyze the cutting-edge strategies of today's top-performing brands and the industry leaders who are engineering their growth. If you want actionable advice and tactics you can implement into your business today, then keep listening. If you want to join a mastermind of other entrepreneurs and leading brand owners, then join us in the Commerce Lab official community on Facebook or visit thecommercelab.com. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Commerce Lab. And today is going to be another very tactical episode. I've invited my friend Felix from the app company Suellwold to come on the show and discuss a little bit about a brand new sales channel that we think, and I think personally, most merchants are underutilizing. And that's a channel that's called web push notifications. Now, what is a web push notification? Most people are pretty aware with a push notification because it's something you receive on your mobile phone all day long, right? Whether it's iPhone or Android, Instagram updates, Facebook Messenger updates, whatever it may be, that is a push notification you're receiving on your screen of your phone. A web push notification is very similar, except it's not being sent from a native app on your phone. It's actually being sent from a website, or in the examples that we're going to be talking about today, an actual storefront. And you've probably seen these. They've popped up, very recently. You're seeing a lot of specifically content companies really heavily pushing opt-ins to web push notifications. And in this space is still a bit of the Wild West. So what we want to do today, and why I brought Felix onto the show, is to talk about how should stores specifically be looking at web push notifications? How should they be utilizing them? And most importantly, at least most importantly to me, is how can you utilize them in a way that's actually going to enhance the brand experience and not be an annoyance and hurt the brand by being an annoyance to the customer. And that's something that can be very easily done if you do this incorrectly. So some of the things we talked about on the show today, exactly what are these things and how can you start to set them up on your store? B, we go through 2 different styles of examples. First what are those baseline examples that really every single store should at the bare minimum test? Things like abandoned cart recovery, things like price drops, things like items back in stock, things that we would consider to be very beneficial to the customer by if they received a notification about this, right? So I consider these to be brand building as well as revenue generating notifications. And and when you look at the examples that we talk about in the show today, you'll get an understanding for what I mean by that. And then we also go into much more advanced use cases. And this is where I get really excited because this is the stuff that people are not doing. And so this is a huge opportunity to go out, utilize this channel in a way that other people are not, and drive more revenue from the business. So we talk about things like advanced segmentations. How do you actually segment the types of messaging you're sending to your audience based upon actions your audience has taken, specific actions specific customers have taken, et cetera. It's another way to really personalize the messaging and the experience, which again is going to enhance the experience for that individual with your brand, but it's also going to drive more revenue. And then we talk about other ways to automate these. If you're on the Shopify Plus platform as an example, and you're familiar with the Flow tool, Flow is an automation backend tool in Shopify Plus that lets you actually automate various sort of if this, then that statements that can cause automation tasks to occur automatically in the background. And for example, Suellwold, which is the app that Felix runs, you can actually plug that into Flow. And so based upon certain actions that might be occurring in the store, you can then trigger web push notifications to your audience, which is incredibly cool. So we talk about some examples for that. And as a quick note, we actually recorded this as a screen share with video. The audio version is great, but if you'd like to see some actual examples and actually walk through and visually see what we're talking about during the show, then head on over to our blog at bluestout.com/podcast and just click on the link for this particular episode. And we actually embedded the video version directly into the blog post page so you can watch it. Hope you enjoy. Hey, Felix, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to do this one. I know this was sort of been in the works for a couple of weeks. But to give everybody just a little bit of context before we dive in and start talking about push notifications, could you give everybody just a quick 20, 30-second intro into who you are and what Push Owl is?
So I'm Felix Suellwold, German name, pretty difficult. So Push Owl is about sending web push notifications, and I'm working on marketing partnerships here at Push Owl. So I make sure that we work with technology partners, with agencies, and that we get our marketing set up straight.
Awesome. And so the reason why I wanted to talk to you guys is from my standpoint, we work with, dozens, of clients a year, and we're always looking for, new tools or new technologies or something to help give people a little bit of an edge. And so always looking to see what are those things out there in the market right now that are giving merchants a little bit of an edge. And Push Owl is one of those tools and those apps that kind of keeps coming up. We have not worked with it with any of our clients yet, but it's something that we're very interested in doing. But I've seen some really strong success from some other merchants, especially in the Shopify Plus space. So what I wanted to do is have you come on and have us dive in and talk about not only what are push notifications and web push notifications and why should we care and sort of the metrics around them, but also really dig in and talk about some use cases and some examples. That way, for everybody and all the merchants that are actually listening, they can walk away from this and say, oh, we should actually explore using web push notifications because of this type of use case that's really going to improve the brand and store experience for our customers. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I think probably the best way to start would be to let you give everybody a little bit of background and just understanding of what a push notification is. I think we all have mobile phones. We all understand what a mobile push notification is. But maybe you can explain a little bit better about how that translates to web and exactly when you talk about push notifications, what do you actually mean?
Right. That's actually an important distinction, like app push notifications, web push notifications. And web push notifications are pretty new. They were introduced 2015. And we all know app notifications, and they are sent from the mobile app on iOS and Android. But web push notifications are sent from your browser. And Push Owl started actually with that idea in 2016. So it was a general solution for sending web push notifications. But then with the time coming, we realized it would be better to focus on these high value activities in e-commerce. And then eventually Push Owl started 2017 in the Shopify App Store. And that's where we have seen the most success, just working with Shopify merchants. And what's important, you don't need an app. So what I initially said, like the browser is sending the notification, and that makes it much more accessible. So nobody has to download anything. And even if your browser is just running in the background, and most people never really close their browser, like you never go to your task manager and close the browser. You always have Chrome or Firefox running in the background. And so that allows you as a merchant to still send push notifications, which are highly visible. They show up on your mobile device or on your desktop screen. And a lot of people think like you have to be on the store maybe to see these push notifications, but you can be on a totally different program. You can have your browser closed. If you are offline, then you get the push notification once you're online again.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think everybody's probably experienced like a web push notification at this point, because there's a lot of brands that are using them, I think, very poorly. And they're very disruptive in terms of the browser experience. And what we're going to talk about today is with Felix are some examples of best use cases for this in e-commerce, where you're not going to end up pushing somebody away from your brand, but actually going to end up utilizing this as a way to re-engage them in a very authentic way and in a very timely way that can be very beneficial. But I think we've all seen these. Like I used to get them all the time from Facebook before I turned them off. You get them sometimes from blogs if you accidentally authorize it, and we'll talk about what that means in a second.
Accidentally is actually a nice term, right?
Yeah, right. And it is. And so I think it's still a little bit of a sort of a gray hat area because they're not being regulated. But that also means for merchants, if you do this correctly and you do it right, it means that there's a ton of opportunity to drive more sales by engaging your customers at the right time on the medium that they're already on, right? Which is their computer, which is, if you're on desktop as an example, the desktop converts much better on average than mobile. So it's an opportunity to identify and connect with somebody who's already on their desktop in a position to complete a purchase that maybe they wouldn't be if they were, somewhere else or just checking their email on their phone. And so I think it's a really cool tool if used correctly. So what I want to have Felix do is talk us through how do you actually get this set up? What is it? How does it work? We're also, for everybody who's just listening to audio, we're doing a screen share. So if you want to come back to bluestout.com/podcast, or just go to thecommercelab.com, you can find the actual video in the show notes here, where we'll actually be walking you through some screen shares of how to set these up. But we'll be talking to you guys through them as part of the audio too. So Felix, I'll sort of hand it over to you, and I'm going to let you talk a little bit about how Push Owl works specifically and how you can set these up. And then after that, we're going to dive into a few examples that I think everybody should at least start testing on their stores.
Right. Let me get back to one thing you said. It was interesting, the regulation part, because as you said, like web push is unregulated. It makes it sound kind of gray head. You're right, but for some merchants, like if you're selling health, if you're selling nutrition, if you do sex toys, if you do vaping, you have issues to do retargeting on Facebook, on Google. So having web push and getting your subscriber or getting your visitors to subscribe is really powerful to overcome that issue that you cannot retarget on the traditional way, so to speak.
No, that's really compelling. And we'll talk about sort of, I think, a retargeting as a use case I think is super interesting. And my point on it being unregulated is that it's, I think that means there's going to be a lot of abuse of it by a lot of other people. But if you don't abuse it, right, and you use it as a way that's going to enhance the brand experience for your customers, it actually makes it an incredibly powerful tool. So I think this is very cool. So Felix, I'll hand it over to you and let you kind of walk through some, how this works.
Let me show you first how the web push notifications look like.
And for everybody who's listening, we're actually inside the Push Out app right now. So I'll kind of walk you guys through what we're seeing here as we do it.
Right. Let me be descriptive here as much as possible. I'm in Push Out. I'm the user interface, and I'm just going to set up a campaign. So these campaigns you would see on your desktop on the right bottom side. If you're on a Windows computer or if you're on an Android smartphone, you see them with your other notifications, and they consist of an icon. Let me see. I should have So icons at best square. Make sure you have your store logo, your store icon, your brand in somewhat of square format. And then a title. Today, I actually ran into a guy who's selling life jackets. That was interesting. So from this perspective, I'm just going to make some captions here. Get your life jacket for 2019. So you have your title or your headline.
So it's almost like building an ad, like you would exactly.
Like in
Facebook. Yeah.
And one thing that's a bit different to Facebook is actually that here, actually it's not so different. Depending on the operating system you are, depending on which device you are, you have different character limits and different limitations. So these are some more detailed stuff. Jackets are out. So now I've been written, I wrote a title, I wrote a message, and then you have your primary link. So if you see the screencast, this is this right area. So wherever the buyer clicks, he will get to that link. So that could be your collection page.
Yep.
Life Jacket 2019. And then you get a hero image. So that's a large image. Makes the whole thing very visible. And what Push Out actually does, it's a detail, but we also allow you to upload a specific image just for mobile. That's a detail. It's similar to like you would crop your Facebook posts for Instagram. So it shouldn't be a blocker, right? Like you shouldn't stop sending notifications just because you don't have that set up. But it makes it a better experience for the subscriber, and you should invest the extra minutes to do that.
So essentially what you've done is you've built almost like a Facebook ad. It's almost like ad type interface, but what's going to happen is for people that, authorize this on your store, whenever you push out a notification, they're going to get this notification up in the top right-hand corner, right, of their screen or their browser that's going to slide in, and it's going to have this content, this imagery, much like you'd see with an ad, but it's actually being pushed into your screen live. Right.
So I'm on the Windows right now, so we're going to do this in a second, and then it comes on the bottom right, actually. But that it depends on what device you're on. So let me add a button. You can add buttons here. Buy now, and then you would go to lifejacket.com, products X, and then a thing you can do, for example, people might be not ready, so you can bring people to your blog, like read the new regulations, and that would bring people to some other article or whatever. So most people click on this upper primary link area. So the CTAs probably help to get the edge out of this, but you got to nail your primary link because this is where people most likely click.
Gotcha. So then as you're sort of continuing to set this up, I'm very curious to hear kind of what the numbers look like that you guys see in terms of engagement. Do you maybe give us some of the ballpark numbers? Because I think that's what's going to make this compelling is, how well does this actually work?
Right. So we see merchants sending out these campaigns a lot. So then naturally your click rate drops to 2%. But then if you do really compelling stuff, we also see click rates on 10%, with 4% being kind of the average. Like we recently looked into large stores, took an average just to get a fair idea of how people or how the campaigns are performing. And there we saw a 4% average. So click rate, that means people see it and then they come to your store.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, that's a pretty good click rate, especially for something that you're not paying on a per click basis, right?
Right. I mean, what you do here, it's Push-All has an impression based pricing. We can actually also go over the pricing in the end a bit because there's some details on that. But so for these campaigns, as you said, it's not, there's no competition. It's not Facebook ads, which gets more and more competitive, and you suddenly have rising CPCs every month. And it's also not like, it's not like social algorithms change or something like this. Will always get to your subscribers unless, they clear their history, they clear their cache, or they opt out, which is pretty difficult, coming back to the regulation topic.
Yeah, I guess what I meant by that is that it's just like that. It's not like Facebook in the sense where you have to be optimizing you have to be optimizing because there's competition, right? And that price is going to change based upon what everybody else is doing. You just control this world, right? Right.
And for these campaigns, there's a lot of stuff you can do, like flash sales, product launches. A lot of merchants get a good success with product launches, just announcing they got a new product in, all kinds of product promotions. Play the whole holiday promotion, seasonal stuff, event promotion. You can do content, like if you have product advice, if you have hacks on how to use your product or your collections, push testimonials. You can also, you don't have to bring people to your store. You could bring people to Facebook. So if you have a good subscriber base and you want to push your Facebook page, you want to push your Pinterest, you could put anything in these primary links and here into the buttons. So you can drive people elsewhere.
And obviously, in order to send push notifications, you have to get somebody who's on your store or coming to your site, your store, to actually opt into receiving them, right?
Right.
Let's do that. Let's talk a little bit about what that process looks like and maybe how to optimize that.
Right. Let me first. So just to show in Push-Out here, we got this widget section to how to set this up, because there are some some optional stuff you can do. So in general, you have to have this browser prompt. So PushOwl doesn't control this, but your browser controls it, and your browser will send or will show this prompt. And then people have to allow. And then there's a certain process with a token that verifies that PushOwl may send these push notifications to this specific browser.
Is there any way to make it more likely that somebody opts into this?
This stuff. So first of all, you can opt in, or you can change the seconds, like when this will show on desktop and mobile. When the prompt will
actually display. Okay.
Right, and that might be important if you show a video on your page, or if you show other stuff that might interfere. So we recommend 5 seconds on desktop, 10 seconds on mobile. That's kind of what we worked out with a lot of merchants. And then we got some other stuff. So we got an overlay. Let me show the preview here. Right. So this will point at that prompt, and then you can change the text. So for the people who are listening, like there's an overlay that will, show to that little prompt in the top left. And you can change the text. So if you are giving out a lot of coupons, you can say like you have to allow this to get more coupons. And there's actually also an automatic welcome push notification you can send. So you can set this up pretty nicely. Like you can promise people a 10% off coupon in this free text. Then they click allow, then they get the welcome notification. So you can do some cool stuff here.
So it's almost like, when we're running prompts to get people to opt into an email list, right? Same type of scenario where while you can't control the text that's showing in the actual browser prompt itself, what PushOwl does is it gives you the opportunity to create an overlay that displays on your screen with an arrow pointing to that prompt. So you can give people an incentive for opting into the prompt, right?
Right.
That's great. Okay.
And then there's another thing you can do. It's a flyout widget. So it's a small widget that, like a fake button, you have to click prior to showing that overlay. So that's more for merchants who are on the defense, who are afraid of showing this prompt. So that obviously totally decreases your subscriber rate. But if you are afraid that you are too spammy or something, you can add the flyout widget. That means first visitors have to click on this tiny little widget on your store, and then they will see that prompt. So this is more for people on the defense,
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
So let me go to this demo store here. And then we should be seeing the browser prompt. Should take a couple of seconds. Also, by the way, so PushOwl is loading that prompt only after everything else is loaded. So there's no
site speed issues.
Right. So I hope I didn't accept this earlier. There we go.
Okay.
So this is pretty simple. Obviously, this would show your domain wants to show notifications, allow, and that's all. So there's no email, there's no SMS, there's no ticking a checkbox. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
And for that, we see like 5%, 3 to 5%. Depends a lot on what you do. Depends on your traffic, on your vertical, on your country where you're at. But like ballpark number, 3 to 5% subscription rate.
3 to 5% is not bad at all for that. And I'm assuming you could probably push it up a little bit further with really incentivized offers as part of that overlay that pushes people to opt in, right?
Right. We have also a solution for the enterprise customers that is a custom button. So you can totally customize a button that will rest on your store. So people have to click that, and then they see the browser prompt. So that can also help you to build something nifty, to make some logic, or put that just very nicely into your customer experience.
So instead of doing an overlay, you can actually design into the site a section that's an opt-in that allows you to click a button that then allows you to opt into the browser prompt, right? So you could build in incentives designed into the site. If you're working on Shopify or Shopify Plus, you could build it into the theme with a button that's, get 10% off your first order or receive free shipping or some sort of an incentive that then once you click that button and opt it into the browser prompt, then you'd start receiving push notifications.
Right, and you have so you need a developer or you need some guy with experience for that. We just put out that solution for those who want more, who really thinking on pushing the envelope here.
No, that's awesome.
Cool. So we build that little thing here. It's not the most beautiful push notification ever sent, but let's send this. So here we go. See, it's not beautiful, but it's very visual, right? It takes a lot.
That's the push notification right there on the right. Okay.
Yes, we just crafted that in a minute. And some people, by the way, also I've seen they reuse their social media messages or what they write in the newsletter. They just like dense it down intensively, so they get like a constant flow of ideas for what to do with these push notifications. Yeah. So, and is there across browsers? Do some browsers edit this at all? Like, can all of these push notifications include an image, or is that only for certain browsers? So that's for Chrome only. Only Chrome is able to show you that this large, we call it hero image. Yep. So you will see that on Android. You will see that in Windows with that. With these dimensions or the mobile dimensions. And we actually have a little thing here to help you. So here you can switch around, what it's going to look like on different browsers. It just gives you an idea. You see, like this here looks a tiny bit different to this because I think there was a recent change, but in general, you have an image here. So this gives you a fair idea. Okay. Well, that's very cool. So I think everybody gets an idea of what this is and how they work. What I'm very interested in though is talking about what use cases here would be best for merchants. And I think the fine line with anything like this is finding where does this exist between being, annoying and actually hurting the brand experience versus being a value add that's going to help push people towards that purchase, or actually just be informational to the point where it's going to help people have a better experience of the brand. And I can already think of a few examples that I would want to test this for that I think would actually be enhancing the brand experience. We can talk about those in a second. But what do you find most stores using push notifications for that seems to be the most successful for them? We have to talk about abandoned cart reminders. That is really the best use case, and everyone should, obviously I'm biased, but everyone should install Push Owl, get the free trial and enable abandoned cart reminders. I think this is the most useful and most revenue driving automation we have. Okay. We can also test that on the store actually. Let me enable this. So maybe just quickly going over the UI here. So we have 3 notifications and you can set the delay time. So when you say 3 notifications, do you mean it's essentially almost like a drip campaign of notification? Right. Gotcha. It's you set up the delay and then you will receive, or the subscriber will receive, and you can also modify them. We pull the product image automatically. So let me put something. Let me go to my test store here real quick, and I will pretend to be a normal visitor, adding something to my cart. So this is the status. And now something interrupts me, or, I have to go elsewhere. I'm closing this, and now we can wait. We can wait, and I can explain the sequence here a bit more. So when we work with merchants, what we ask to do is that think about your tone you use in your other marketing messages and try to adjust your reminders here a bit. So if you do a lot of promotion, you can do kind of like a coupon ladder where you do first like a soft reminder, and then the next one has a coupon, and the third one has the coupon and free shipping. Sure. So like a discount ladder. Right. Mm-hmm. And here you see the how to edit, same as we saw before. So similar to the campaign we sent earlier, you have a title, you have a message, and you kind of have to think that it fits all the different operating system and devices. So we suggest to be pretty short on words here, like 40 characters, being pretty crisp. And then you can, change your text for the CTAs, and you can do this for all the 3 notifications. Obviously, you can change the time. And yeah, as mentioned before,
Cool.
the product image is
so it's essentially like creating an email drip campaign, like an abandoned cart email drip campaign. So if you work with any platforms like MailChimp or Klaviyo, setting up that abandoned cart campaign so people are going to be getting multiple notifications. The first one would be within the hour, let's say, that you abandon your cart. And then if they don't take advantage of that, then you're going to be dripping them additional incentives to recapture that cart, whether it be a discount code or a free shipping code, whatever it may be. So essentially what Felix is walking through here is exactly the exact same thing, but in web push notification form. What we've seen to be incredibly successful across a lot of merchants that we work with is utilizing abandoned cart sequences, not just on email, right? Email is obviously sort of the first line of defense, but there's so many other options, whether it be Facebook Messenger, whether it be through text recovery, and then obviously now push notification. Web push notification is another really easy low-hanging fruit opportunity to recapture people, especially when you think about it. People are shopping on your site, right? They're adding product to their cart, and maybe they're leaving to go shop somewhere else, right? And maybe they're still in their browser. Maybe they're still on their computer, still shopping. You're actually going to be hitting them with a notification right where they're at, right on the medium that they're currently interacting with, because they would have just been shopping on your store. So I actually find that to be probably the most compelling option for an abandoned cart for a first notification in a sequence, because you're going to be hitting them within minutes of them actually abandoning.
Right. And you can, of course, play around a bit. Maybe 5 minutes is not the best time. Maybe it's 20 minutes. But even like you're shopping during work, you log off, and next morning you get back in the internet, you get back on your Chrome browser, and then you see that notification and eventually finish your shopping. Yeah. And the thing is, cool. what we saw, like, again, it's just pressing this accept button, right? This drip campaign doesn't need an email address. You don't need to enter your SMS. It's much more visible than the subject line of an email. There's no promotion filter. Like, everything we went over for the campaigns is also valid here for the abandoned cart reminders. And that's really where web push plays out. Like, it's highly visual because you have this large hero image on the Chrome browsers. So yeah, we see this being the number one reason why merchants, are interested, asking us to get on the business plan to use abandoned cart reminders.
No, that makes total sense. So anything else on abandoned cart you think we need to talk about?
I'm waiting for that 5 minutes notification actually to come through. Actually, I want to. For the podcast, I also wanted to suggest everybody who's listening, when you get on Push Owl, just message our chat support, tell them Alan sent you, and you will get an extended free trial. So we have a 14-day free trial, but we will upgrade you to an extended free trial for 30 days. So you have more time to take advantage of abandoned cart reminders, get familiar with the workflows, test some different copy on your abandoned cart reminders. So I think that's going to be very helpful for the podcast listeners.
Yeah, I think everybody should absolutely test the abandoned cart piece, because it's just a huge low-hanging fruit, opportunity that you can layer in on top of everything else you're doing, like email or text abandoned cart recovery. So what I find, and again, I think the fine line with all of this is not being annoying to the customer base, not feeling like you are invading somebody's personal space with web push notifications. I think that's something that could become an issue, as people feel like you're actually invading their desktop with notifications like this. Unless what you're providing is really value add. And one of the use cases that I find for web push that I think is very compelling is actually back in stock notifications. So, and just as an example, right, I was watching my wife shop literally 2 days ago, and watching her get very frustrated with finding something she liked or seeing something on Instagram, going to a store and finding that it was just out of stock, or they didn't have her size in stock. And that would be an incredibly compelling value add experience for her if, for example, she was shopping and she got a notification saying that that pair of shoes or that pair of pants, whatever it may be, was back in stock. And so I see that as being less, and especially if the copy around it was less promotional and was much more value added, right? As in, you know, hey, we noticed you were checking this out. By the way, we've just restocked it, right? Something that's going to be very compelling. That's just a nudge saying, you know, as sort of just a little reminder, I want to let you know this is now back in stock. So I see back in stock notifications as web push as being something that's highly, highly valuable. I'd be curious to hear, Felix, how you guys see merchants setting that up or how easy that is to set up.
It's again super easy to set up. It comes out of the box here with push out, so you don't need any. We track your stock. So if your stock goes to zero, basically, we will show a little widget where your visitor can subscribe to push notifications for that particular product.
Got it.
And then once you set your stock back from 0 to 100 or whatever, it will send out this notification to all the people who have subscribed. So that's pretty useful. And again, what you said, like you have to work with the copy a bit. Like obviously we have a default text, but our default text, they fit all the use cases. So you got to be nice, like what is the rest of your ad copy like, and optimize the text there a bit.
Okay. Now I see over in the UI here too, you have a price drop notification. I think that along the lines of a back in stock notification, I think is also very value add, right? That's something that it's almost like I compare it to when you're looking for hotels, you're looking for flights, and you want to be notified when the price drops, right? That's a highly compelling notification that you want to get. And I think the same thing for product, but we don't see that often. I mean, there are stores that do that, for example, with email campaigns, but we don't get any sort of other dynamic notifications or informations around price drops. So I think that's another very compelling use case for web push is when product that you've been viewing or product that you want to be notified by drops in price, you want to get that notification right away. That's something that's a timely thing.
Right. It makes a very good user experience. Like it gives a good reason to engage, and it feels like very welcome to receive that push notification. You're right.
Yep.
And by the way, we got on the right-hand side, we got the abandoned cart. So
there we go.
So we're actually
looking at what the abandoned cart push notification looks like. And on Windows, it appears in that bottom right-hand corner. Can you change where it appears on the screen, or is that browser specific?
That's fixed. So where these web push notifications show, that is fixed by the browser. That's outside our control.
Okay. Very cool.
Let me go through the rest here real quick. So we talked about abandoned cart. We talked back in stock, price drop. Another thing that can turn out really nice for you when you want to just engage more with your buyers. You can set up this shipping confirmation. So as soon as you fulfill your item, because maybe it's a pre-order, maybe it's something limited, which is just coming in end of March, and people are already purchasing. So this web push notification gets sent out once you fulfill your item. So that's another, and then what we actually touched.
So it's essentially just like same thing if we're thinking in terms of sort of the email world. When you get that email saying your product is shipped, you instead, or in addition, you'd be getting a web push notification that says your product has just shipped.
Right. Actually, it's a good way to think about how you do things on email once you're setting up your web push notification. That gives you a fair idea of what to do.
Perfect.
And then what we touched upon earlier, these welcome notifications. So this is something you can enable, and then whenever somebody presses allow on that subscription prompt, he will automatically receive this welcome notification. So you can make that just welcoming, like, hey, great to have you here, or you can send out a coupon immediately. So that depends on your store and how you want to play out things. But we see also a lot of merchants liking that a lot, just to show also confirmation that the subscription accepting the web push notification worked.
Very cool. Okay. So I think what I want to do is transition a little bit, because I think these are all, I'd call these sort of like the baseline push notifications, right? These are all the things that are sort of low-hanging fruit, abandoned cart, back in stock, price drop, shipping, things that, every store should probably be testing. Abandoned cart sounds like, just from, Felix's experience and seeing the revenue and ROI return on it, being the absolute one to test first. So I'd recommend everybody just test it on your store, see how your audience responds. It's still a very new, technology, but for the numbers that Felix and his team are seeing, it seems to be very compelling. So I'd highly recommend testing it. What I'd like to talk, maybe just spend a couple minutes on, is maybe some more advanced use cases. So things that, even though web push is still a bit new, what are some of the more advanced examples or use cases of how to use this that, Felix and the push out team are starting to see be used or are starting to test, things that you guys could start to use to give yourself a bit of an edge? So one of the goals of the podcast, the Commerce Lab, is to be looking at and staying ahead of new technology and seeing what would give you an edge over your competition. So I'm curious to see what Felix sees as being some of the more advanced opportunities with push.
Right. So what we have for our enterprise customers is segmentation, so that you send out your campaigns to your users, to user segments, subscriber segments. Like, did you purchase already, or did you not purchase yet? Which country are you in? Which device are you on? So that's one advanced thing we have for our enterprise users.
Very cool. So essentially, just like you would segment an email list based upon like engagement or actions or products purchased, you can also segment your push notifications by some similar criteria.
Right. And we're currently adding more segments. Obviously, that's what these advanced merchants are very interested in. Like, hey, can we do this? Can we do this? We get a lot of feedback here, and we're building segments as we're speaking. So we hope to launch a lot of cool stuff there. And then another thing is we recently built the connector for Shopify Flow. So Shopify Flow being an app only available for Plus merchants to automate workflows. And there's basically two things you can do. You can put the connector in your workflow to send one individual push notification to one subscriber. So for example, if you have, let me show you something. So this would here, we call this loyal customer discount. When somebody, and this is just an example, right? When somebody had 5 orders, you send them a push notification just to that particular user and give him a discount. So this is the flow interface, and there's some default text here. So you can send him this static coupon, and that gives them the 20% discount. So you can build a lot of pretty cool stuff by just adding this to things you don't have in Push Owl yet, to send individual subscribers one push notification. And another thing that's a bit more complicated but makes your life much easier is sending a push notification to all your subscribers based on certain tags or certain other actions. So one use case is, for example, a new item is added to your store. So you add one item to your store and you have a workflow built that triggers based on adding a new item and giving it the tag, new product, new item, limited edition. You use that as if conditions, and then your then condition is sending a push notification to all your subscriber base to drive them to your store. And the benefit obviously being you don't have to manually go to Push Owl and send that campaign here.
So can you actually go back to Flow just for a second?
Sure.
So what I just want to explain for everybody who's watching the video and also listening, because I don't think everybody here is as familiar with the Shopify Flow system yet. And it's essentially a workflow builder only for Shopify Plus, so for the enterprise version of Shopify, but essentially allows you to build a sort of if this then that series of flows based upon actions. So for example, you can start a trigger that says once an order has been paid for, and then in this example, if the order the number of orders that customer has transacted is equal or greater to than 5. And then if yes, then you can actually have a very specific action taken on the site. And in this case, it would be sending a push notification through PushOwl. So we're going to have actually an episode in the future that's going to be entirely based talking about workflow examples for Shopify Plus's Flow system. But just for everybody who's new to it, that's what this is. So essentially what you're able to do with PushOwl is create this workflow that's based upon certain triggers happening on the site, and then send either very specific messages to customers one-off, or to send a message to your entire customer base. What I love about the individual customer messaging is as we keep making this push towards more personalized on-site experiences and more personal interactions with the brand and the customer, being able to trigger one-off messages or one-off communications with customers is going to be really, really effective for driving sales in the future. People are going to be watered down with lots of marketing messaging through ads and email, and the ability to say, hey, look, Felix, we saw that you have made your 5th purchase with us. We wanted to thank you for that and give you, a free shipping code or 25% off code or a free gift on your next purchase, whatever it may be. Those types of little tweaks that you can set up in an automated fashion, meaning these things are just firing in the background and happening for you with these automation tools, are all the little touches that are going to take your brand experience from just being generic to being very high touch. And that's a huge advantage as you're trying to scale and as you're looking for better retention. We're going to keep talking more and more about retention on the podcast because it's such a fantastic way to drive profits when we're seeing customer acquisition costs go soaring these days. These types of workflows and these types of automations with personalized messaging are going to really help build retention. So this is, I think, a really very, very cool use case. Especially if you're on Shopify Plus and have the Flow tool.
Right. And I got to be honest, we launched the Flow Connect a couple of weeks ago. Our merchants are still experimenting with this. We didn't get too much feedback yet. So everybody watching this, please, message us with your ideas if you need help on this. We're really eager to push this further and make push notifications, web push notifications, a very personal medium.
Awesome. Okay. So after Shopify Flow, what other type of sort of advanced feature sets are you guys seeing?
I think this is what we have status quo on PushOwl. Okay. This is the kind of things we have built so far. And then obviously we have a lot of ideas. Product pipeline is pretty big. Stuff we have mentioned, like more general drip campaigns, for example, would be a very nice feature add. So there's more coming. We're hiring much more tech people to build these features, and there will be frequent updates in the future on where PushOwl is going.
Awesome. Yeah. And honestly, Felix, that's why I wanted you guys on the show. Is I think this is something that's a bit of it's still a sort of the Wild West, right? This is a new medium that merchants especially are just starting to test. And we have merchants that we work with or that we know that have been setting these up and seeing great success. And I think with the examples we talked about today, there's room to come in and set up some of those baseline notifications to test and see how well your audience responds. And obviously back in stock and shipping notifications, price drops, sound like those are the first ones we should be testing as merchants. But once you have those baselines in place, I would highly recommend testing, probably to start with Shopify Flow, testing one of these highly personalized messages that's going to target your best customer base. So like when we're if we're going to talk about the example through email, the email terms again, might be something that you might do as part of like your VIP automation campaign in email. So if you're running, for example, VIP automations or flows in Klaviyo, where you're sending very specific offerings or you're sending specific, gifts or discounts to your best customer base, once they hit that threshold, whatever you determine to make them a best customer. If you're doing similar things like that with email, I would highly test something similar to that using a push notification and triggering it based upon a certain amount of orders or maybe a certain value, right? So after they've spent a certain amount of money with the brand, giving them something little to re-engage them and really build up that relationship as a VIP is going to go a long ways in terms of building them as a high converting customer in the future, right? So if you're looking at how do you build up purchase frequency or build up retention, that's a really nice touch point that you can just automate as part of the process. So I'd highly recommend testing that. And that's something we're going to be recommending for some of our merchants to test. And we can also report back on some of the numbers. So Felix, I think this was really good and really helpful. Is there anything else you wanted to show everybody before we start to wrap things up?
That's it. Like if you test Push Owl, just talk to customer support, tell them, Alan sent you, and we're going to give you the extended free trial. We want to see as much as the possible of the listeners experiment with this. And our support is very much available also for help if you need ideas. Maybe one more thing on Shopify Flow. If you have worked with this before, you know that you can download these workflows. So we have prepared a couple of workflows for you guys. So you can go to our blog and just download the workflow and import it into your flow. So then you have directly something to work with, something that works out of the box, so to speak, and you just have to tweak it. That's a tiny extra.
What we'll do is we'll also link to that in the show notes.
Sure, yeah.
On the blog post too, to make sure people have that, because that is one of the nice things about Shopify Flows, that you can download pre-existing or existing workflows that other people have created to make it really easy to set up.
Right. Cool. That was it from my side. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Felix, this was really helpful. And I, like I said, I encourage everybody to test this on their stores and see how their customers start to respond. It's a very quick setup and something that can be highly compelling. And a great way to drive additional revenue as we're continuing to look for new ways to build leverage into that experience, especially as we see other forms of customer acquisition going up. Anything you guys can do to start converting more of your existing traffic or converting more of your existing customer base to build some leverage on the back end and build in more retention is going to be really helpful. And I think this is a great tool to test to see if that's a good option for your brand. So Felix, again, thanks for coming on the show, and we'll have to catch up in the future. And once you guys continue to iterate on the product and build out more feature sets and continue to test and see what works for merchants, and we'll have you back and talk maybe about some more of the advanced feature sets you guys are building right now.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic. Thanks so much for having Push Owl on your show. It's awesome.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Commerce Lab. To connect with myself or the team here at Blue Stout, visit us at bluestout.com. To join a community of like-minded e-commerce entrepreneurs and other brand owners just like you, join the Commerce Lab official community on Facebook or visit us at thecommercelab.com.